Judah. Here is the undisputed welterweight champion of the world from St. Louis, Corey Spinks.
Nelly, the recording artist, brings it in.
Right here, I'll accept punches. Right here, I'll accept punches. Good luck. May the best man win. Touch gloves.
Now that time, Spinks didn't touch him up. Nothing big. Just touch him. His Zab finally opens up and does catch him a little bit. That Judah. Oh, he caught Corey that time with a pretty good left hand. He's stacking him. He's hurt him. And he waves it off with the bell. I think that was the bell anyway. It was. That ended the round. And he got hit just before the bell and went down.
You cannot do that, man. You cannot be lazy, not time in this fight.
There he is. He catches Zab coming in. Zab nails him. He's ready to go. He got him with a good shot. He's out on his feet. And down he goes. He's right up in the ropes. It's up to 7 and 8
How we doing?
and 9. He lets him walk forward. There's 40 seconds to go, and Zab is on top of him. He's going to finish him right now. He's on top of him. He's all over him. Spinks is ready to go. He gets there with another shot. He hangs on to Zab desperately. What's he thinking of? He doesn't want to hit the guy. He's out of his mind. Finally, he stops it. He begs the referee to stop the fight. He begs the referee to stop the fight. Zab Judah is the new, undisputed welterweight champion of the world, and he did it in dramatic style.
Well, the fight was stopped at the 2:49 mark of the 9th round after Spinks was knocked down for the second time. Kevin Cunningham, who trains Corey Spinks, said he had no problem with the stoppage and was going up the steps to stop it himself. Now, all 3 judges had Judah comfortably ahead when the fight was stopped. Here's what Zab Judah had to say following the bout.
If you look at my press, I've been telling everybody I'm going to knock him out. No disrespect to him. He's a great guy, great fighter, but it's my time, it's my era, and I'm determined right now. You know, I didn't want to kill him or anything like that, so I was asking the ref to stop it, but the ref, chose that the fight should have went on, and, I'm my own referee in here, man, definitely.
You know, the fight was the first major bout that they had in St. Louis in some 40 years, and the crowd went away disappointed. The hometown boy, Corey Spinks, bit off a little more than he could chew in Zab Judah.
He had 1.2 million reasons to take this rematch. He didn't really want this fight, but the offer on the table was so great, he had no other choice. Judah was so convinced that he would win this fight, he took $100,000. Now, if you remember last week when we talked in the preview of this fight, I mentioned 2 things. I mentioned, first of all, the southpaw stance, and I also mentioned the knockdown. And I said to you, that knockdown that Judah hit Spinks with in the last round and had him out could be the telltale sign of the fight, that was a real 2-point round. And from the outset, you could see that Spinks was very wary. It was Judah who was pressing the action, Judah who was trying to line up the hard shots, Zab Judah who was trying to be being the aggressor, and Spinks was just moving. He seemed hesitant. He seemed to be pulling away all the time. He was worried about that the whole time, the power of Zab Judah. The other thing, Dutchie, that I have to bring out is this whole nonsense before the fight, this music, rapping stuff before getting into the ring. Oh, you look great going in. How did you look coming out? He got beat up. He was more worried about how he looked going in. And you can look back in history, guys like Alvin Hayes, Roger Mayweather, Fernando Vargas against Tito Trinidad choreographed his entry into the ring for an hour and a half before the fight. Anthony Hembrick against Booker Ward, his entrance took longer than the fight. He got knocked out in 1 round. McCrory against Donald Curry, blasted out of the building. Forget this stuff. Why don't you guys worry more about what you look like in the ring and after the fight than what you look like going into the ring? This stuff is just crap. He was worn out probably before he went in.
No, and I agree with you. You know how I feel about Prince Nassim Hamed and all the bravado and everything that goes along with that. I will say this, though. Corey Spinks never had it. Zab Judah was all over him. And when Judah said the last time, he goes, I was 1 round away from winning that first fight, he really was. Yeah. He felt that way. Actually, he thought it was important that the fight take place in St. Louis. He wanted it to be in Spinks' backyard because Judah thought, you know what, this gives me an advantage. He'll be distracted.
He's right. And, you know, as a trainer, I love taking my fighter into the hometown guy. You know, that's the place you want to be because, believe me, you can draw on sometimes more from the crowd going against you than you can draw from the crowd that's pulling for you. So it's wonderful to keep that crowd quiet and just crush the guy right in front of everybody, and you remove all doubt.
Right, you're right. Judah said that he would never fight in his hometown of New York. He said it puts too much pressure on the fighter who is at home. He also said, at least Corey Spinks did, you know what, I gave him a chance. I hope that I get a rematch. Now, who do you think Zab Judah should defend the undisputed welterweight title against? Should it be a trilogy against Corey Spinks? Should he go after Antonio Margarito? Should he go after Sugar Shane Mosley? Or perhaps somebody else? All you have to do is log on to tsn.ca/boxing and register your response. All right, when we come back, boxing loses a legend inside and outside of the ring. We remember Max Schmeling. Asked you, which future fight are you most looking forward to seeing? Would it be Hopkins or Eastman? Morales Pacquiao, Wright Trinidad, or Costa Zoo and Ricky Hatton? Overwhelmingly, you responded, the fight you're most looking forward to is Wright against Trinidad.
You think it's Wright or you think it's Trinidad?
No, I think it could be all wrong for Wright. We'll see how that works out. WBC IBF heavyweight elimination bout featuring the undefeated Owen Beck and Monty Barrette. Barrette gets the advantage early. Big uppercut, then he drops Beck with a left, tries to finish him off. Somehow, Beck would withstand the round and would survive. Next round, they start exchanging blows again. Barrette getting the cleaner and the sharper punches off as well.
I'll tell you something. You name me the last time we saw heavyweight action this intense for the amount of rounds that the fight went. I mean, these guys went at it. There wasn't a lot of clutching, grabbing. They stayed busy for two big guys, and this bodes well for the heavyweight division, I think.
The ninth round, Barrette with a cut over his left eye. He's got Beck against the ropes. He's pounding away. Finally, he goes down. The end is near. Beck continues to get pummeled. Finally, the referee says enough is enough. It's a ninth round TKO for Monty Barrette. Were you impressed with the way Monty Barrette looked in this bout?
Yes, I was. Not only that, I got to tell you a little story. 1998 Commonwealth Games in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Owen Beck was part of the Jamaican team, as was Ron Donaldson. I worked Owen Beck's corner. We knew at that point that this guy is going to do something because he's got some skills. And sure enough, he was in there with, you know, in almost a box-off to see who's going to be moving on. He comes up short against Monty Barrette. But, you know, I think, like I said earlier, this was an entertaining heavyweight tilt. When was the last time we saw a heavyweight tilt like that? I mean, we had John Ruiz, who's the champion of the world, who clutches and grabs his way through fights. So I think this bodes well, and I think Monty Barrette certainly showed a lot of determination, a lot of heart in a tough guy in Beck, because he pounded Beck for 9 rounds, and Beck stayed in there, and finally Barrette took him out. So, yeah, not bad at all.
Yeah, there are not a lot of promising heavyweights out there right now as it stands.
It ain't Joe Louis. It ain't Lennox Lewis. You know,
and you know what? You bring up Joe Louis's name. You know, the heavyweight world, the boxing world in general, with a heavy heart now due to the death of former champ Max Schmeling. He passed away this week at the age of 99. Schmeling is most famous for knocking out the great Joe Louis. 2 years later, he would lose to Louis in a famous rematch, as Schmeling is still the only German to ever win a heavyweight world title. More on him in a moment. Meanwhile, heavyweight Andrew Galata hopes the 4th time will be the charm when he beats Lamont Brewster for the WBO heavyweight championship. The fight will take place in Chicago, Galata's hometown of the United Center, on April the 16th. It's the first heavyweight championship fight in the Chicago area since 1981. At the age of 40, Toronto's Egerton Marcus is apparently considering a comeback. Marcus won a silver medal while representing Canada at the 1988 Olympics. The 2-time WBC World Lightweight Champion Jose Luis Castillo will take on former IBF Lightweight Champion Julio Kid Diaz on March the 5th in Vegas. Diaz had been under contract for a mandatory title defense against the IBF's #1 contender, Levander Johnson. To take the fight with Castillo, Diaz decided to forfeit his belt, the IBF title. We see that all the time with the forfeiture of belts. But let's get back to Max Schmeling, if we can, for a moment or two. As I mentioned, the boxing world is mourning not only the loss of a former champion, but a great humanitarian. Now, I thought this quote basically summed up the late, great fighter best. He said, "I don't want anyone to say I was a good athlete, but worth nothing as a human being. I couldn't bear that." he was a great boxer. He was an even better human being. His story is remarkable. If you're not familiar with it, you should reacquaint yourself with Max Schmeling and how the Nazis had tried to use them in terms of their propaganda machine, his fights with Joe Louis. He really had a remarkable life. He really did. Talk about the fighter, though. Where does he rank all time?
It's hard to say because now with fighters getting bigger and stronger, he would be considered a small heavyweight by today's standards. But when you look back in those days, or prior to, say, us going into these last 20 years, he would have been there among maybe the top 10 or 15 heavyweight champions of all time. A devastating right-handed puncher. And let me tell you something that Max Schmeling did that made him an innovator. Look at the right hand. Bang! And that was the end of Joe Louis in that fight. The one thing that Max Schmeling did, he became an innovator to what today is considered, I mean, you don't even sign a fight without seeing tape of a guy. Max Schmeling was famous for this quote when he fought Joe Louis, and they asked him, what does he think, you know, about fighting Joe Louis? And he said, I watch tapes. I see something. And what he did see was that Joe Louis would drop that left hand every time he jabbed. And from the minute the bout began, as soon as Joe Louis would throw that jab, Schmeling, who used to keep his right hand right here, he'd wait, he'd kind of, you know, feint with this hand, and bang, he would cross that right over the top. And that's what hurt Joe Louis. And, you know, he saw that. He was an innovator ahead of his time. So I think, you know, it's sad that we've lost him.
Yeah,
but,
you know what?
If you ever get a chance to see the films, Dutch, you got to watch this guy.
Yeah, he saw a lot of things. He saw the Nazi machine. He saw the propaganda. He would not be a part of that. He also saw to Joe Louis's funeral itself. Schmeling was the man who actually paid for that. He helped in terms of Joe down the stretch with his health care. He helped him out financially. The Schmeling Institute and his foundation continues to do great works over in Germany.
The greatest sportsman in German history.
You know what? Yeah. He really is. All right. We have to take another break. When we come back, Cowboy Dale Brown returns to the ring. His highlights are coming up next. You're watching In This Corner with Russ Anber. The former Olympian, making his pro debut at Club Soda in Montreal. He took on Justin Hahn of Kansas City, who looked like Tarzan when he stepped into the ring. I'll tell you what, it was the pro debut for Pascal. He didn't disappoint, and the Hahn guy didn't put up much resistance, but boy, can he take a punch. Tarzan was bobbing and weaving.
I'll tell you what, this guy kept getting back up. Jean-Pascal tried to take him out in the first round, and he went down. This guy came back up and got up again in the second. So, I mean, he certainly was tough. There's no doubt about that. But this was a good win for Jean-Pascal in his pro debut. What a right-hand bomb right there. And again, and that's going to be it for Justin Hahn.
That's it for Tarzan. Second round TKO for Jean-Pascal in what was his professional debut. Friday night in Orangeville, Ontario. Troy Ross looking to go 12-0 against journeyman cruiserweight at 10 Whitaker. 2 rounds, all he'd need. Ross backs his opponent into the corner, then catches him with a straight left hand. Whitaker would not get up. Ross's 8th knockout in 12 straight wins. Meanwhile, you've also got the hometown kid, Brian Mackey, facing American Brock Stodden. Second round, Mackey catches his foe with a straight right as he's coming in. The American was reeling. Mackey follows with a combination that would floor Stodden. Now Stodden forced to resort to questionable tactics to stay in the fight. Headbutts,
look at this on the floor.
Headbutts, forearms, flagrant low blows. Mackey could only shake his head. It all comes to an end a round later, though, after 2 knockdowns. Mackey was trying to put this guy away. Stodden, he couldn't survive anymore. He takes a knee. That was it. A 5th round TKO for Brian Mackey, his 24th career victory. That was another fight, as you mentioned off the top, one that you worked. You got all wound up there.
I did, you know, because I don't know what we're seeing. An epidemic now is going on. You know, there's a certain line you don't cross as a fighter. There's certain things you don't do. Intentionally trying to hurt somebody, intentionally trying to headbutt, use elbows is a line you don't cross. So I was really upset with that, you know, that happened. I mean, there's certain things, there's a code among boxers that you don't do that. And sometimes the opportunity presents itself and you still don't do it. That's why we're allowed to have boxing. And when that guy crossed that line, that was just awful, you know, and I got upset with that. That's something that I'm dear to as a fan and as a trainer.
Sure, absolutely. The great ones, they never have to resort to that sort of thing. Let's talk about 4 Canadian pros. We just saw Dale Brown was fighting on Friday. You mentioned Brian Mankey. We see Troy Ross in there. You see Jean Pascal. I mean, these are 4 guys at 4 different points in their professional careers. It's kind of neat.
It is kind of neat. Jean Pascal, obviously one of the highly touted amateurs to turn pro now, making his pro debut. He's making his move, so he's off to a great start. The fans loved him, got good response in Montreal. Then on the other side of the spectrum, you've got somebody like Dale Brown. Dale Brown is sitting in the #1 spot at the WBC, staying regular, waiting, biding his time for a world title shot. That's where he wants to go. Then you've got Troy Ross. Troy Ross turned pro in April of 2001, and up to this point has only had 12 fights.
I know.
And that, there's been fights falling out, opponents not, canceling, not being able to get across. A whole bunch of things have happened, but this guy's probably one of the most devastating punchers in the division. What he needs to do now is just get himself going so that he can, he can figure among the top 10 where he can make a payday. And then you've got Brian, who's fighting in front of 3,000 people in Orangeville. He's a hero fighting guys like this. So, 4 careers that have taken 4 different paths, but all very exciting.
Yeah, very enjoyable action indeed. All right, we have to take a short break. When we come back, though, it is Russ's final flurry. You thought he got worked up before? Just wait. You haven't seen anything yet. We'll talk about Roy Jones Jr. and more when we return. For you. You can revisit the Floyd Mayweather-Henry Brusalis match. You can check out Dale Brown and Shelby Gross. Then it's Friday Night Fights, followed by another edition of Gotti and Jesse James Lejes. Arturo looked extremely sharp. On to Russ's final flurry. We throw a few questions at him, and he counter-punches right back. Let's start the first one with Arturo Gotti, as we just saw his name. And who do you think would make the best fight for Arturo Gotti? Would it be against Floyd Mayweather and his defense, Costa Tszou's power, or do you think that Ricky Hatton would be the best opponent, even though Hatton is relentless?
Now, you're talking all money being considered equal, right?
Everything
they get the same amount of money for each one, right?
What style benefits him the best?
If I had my choice of having to pick an opponent, the guy I would want for Arturo Gotti is somebody he can hit. And if he can thump somebody, he's got a good chance to win. And the guy he can thump is Ricky Hatton. Not only that, but with the Hatton popularity in Manchester, I mean, this fight could probably be even worth more to him than the Mayweather fight. Although on U.S. soil, Mayweather seems to be the bigger fight, and in the boxing world, he's the bigger name. But Hatton would be the guy I'd like to see in there with Gotti, and I think Gotti takes him out.
Okay, what about Roy Jones Jr.? Do you want to see Jr. return to the ring?
Somebody asked me that, and I said, are we going to see the old Roy or an old Roy? And I just still, unless proven differently, I just still subscribe to my theory that Roy Jones caused damage to himself by coming back down from the heavyweight division. When he put on that 25-pound of muscle, he was strong. Coming back down and losing it, I think, weakened him, and I think he damaged himself. So time is going to tell on that.
You mentioned that you had been asked that question. We got a question from another one of our viewers. Ivan Montiel wanted to ask you, if Bernard Hopkins and Felix Tito Trinidad end up stepping back into the ring, who do you like in that fight?
I always like B-Hop. I think he's got the style made to order for Trinidad, although Trinidad comes with great power. I like Hopkins. I think he dominated the first time, and I think he'll do it again. And until beaten, B-Hop's the man.
Right, and if you have any questions for us, all you have to do is log on to tsn.ca/boxing and fire away on Monday. We will look forward to the next fight for Bernard Hopkins as he gets set to return to the ring. Joshem Alcine is also back in the squared circle. All that and more on the next edition of In This Corner with Russ Anber. For Russ and myself, thanks for watching the show, folks. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week.